In the year 2236, on the edge of the former Philippine archipelago, now a thriving sovereign technosphere known as the Sovereignty of Luz Viminda, Commander Isla Navarro stood at the panoramic observation bay of the orbital citadel Lacandula Prime. Her silhouette was a dark cutout against the swirling blue and green mass of Earth, partially obscured by clouds and the luminous trails of trade satellites. Below her, the sea shimmered, brilliant, deceptive. Peace was a myth here, as it had always been. Navarro had served 2 decades in the fleet and bore the marks of it. A cybernetic arm that pulsed faintly under her uniform sleeve, a spine reinforced by smart alloy, and eyes that recalibrated for any light condition without her needing to blink. Yet, it wasn't war that had changed her the most. It was history, forgotten history, rewritten or stolen by the colonial scripts of Earth's powers centuries ago. Her obsession began as a whisper during her academy days, a footnote in a dying scholar's journal, and grew into a consuming fire that she now carried into every mission, every decision. Behind her, the soft hiss of the command chamber doors announced the arrival of her intelligence officer, Dr. Tano Ackland. He was younger, unaugmented, with a face too sincere for military service. But he had a mind sharp enough to dissect propaganda and assemble truth from ancient ruins and encrypted archives. "They've found another site," he said, handing her a tablet. "Panay Trench, 600 meters below. Energy signatures, non-thermal, old tech, pre-eclipse era. Maybe older." Navarro skimmed the data. Her eyes hardened. "Pre-eclipse? That predates the collapse. Could be proto-solarist tech. Could be Tagalog Old World relics." Ackland hesitated. "There's something else. We intercepted a relay burst from the Terran Directorate. They've already dispatched a recovery team. ETA, 20 hours. Navarro's jaw tightened. The Terran Directorate had no claim here, no jurisdiction. But they never needed it. They had firepower and a colonial arrogance that never truly died. After the Solar Wars and the dissolution of Earth's United Nations, the Directorate became a successor empire in all but name, scavenging former colonies under the guise of historical recovery. "They're not after relics," she said quietly. "They're after narrative. If they get there first, they control what the galaxy knows of us. Again." Ackland nodded, understanding. "We can beat them there if we reroute from the Palawan perimeter, but we'd be cutting close to the Centauri embargo line." "Risk it," Navarro replied. "Assemble Bantai Lima. I want our deep-sea crawler ready in 6. Ackland gave a sharp nod and turned to leave, but hesitated again. "Do you really believe it's the Maharlika archive? That it survived?" Navarro turned back to the viewport, her voice low. "I don't know. But if there's even a sliver of the past buried down there, a truth they couldn't erase, I'll risk everything to find it." 6 hours later, the Bantai Lima, a sleek multi-role exploration vessel, disengaged from Lacandula Prime and began its descent into Earth's atmosphere. Below, the sea churned, hiding secrets that had defied centuries of conflict, submersion, and silence. The crew, handpicked by Navarro, were a mix of military personnel, scholars, and machine intelligences bonded to ancestral memory nodes, rare constructs designed to store oral histories in crystalline quantum matrices. Among them was Sarah Magdalene, a historian born in the Martian belt, trained in mnemonic reconstruction. She had never been to Earth until now, never seen the lands her ancestors once called home. Her role was simple. If they found what Navarro hoped, Sarah would be the one to speak to the machines, to unlock whatever memories still lingered in the code. As the ship plunged through layers of turbulent cloud, red warning glyphs flashed across the pilot's HUD, proximity alerts, interceptors, not Directorate standard. "Unknown vessels approaching Vector 12, the pilot barked. "No IFF signature, stealth modified." Navarro cursed. Privateers, scavenger fleets. But she knew better. These weren't random raiders. These were the silence makers, the hired knives of empires who didn't want history remembered. All hands, combat protocols. No one fires unless I say so, she ordered. If they want to fight, we give them a reason to regret it. The Bante Lima veered sharply, descending faster toward the Panay Trench. Outside, the Red Sea of clouds thinned, revealing the dark, yawning maw of the ocean beneath them. Somewhere within that abyss, the past waited, not inert, not dead, but patient. As the first blast rocked the ship and red light bathed the interior corridors, Sarah whispered to herself a line from a pre-colonial chant she had memorized from a fragmented Tagalog codex. Ang nakaraan ay hindi nawala, nagtago lang sa dilim. The past was never lost. It only hid in the dark. And below, in the black silence of the trench, something ancient stirred. The Bante Lima breached the surface of the Panay Trench with a low tremor, its reinforced hull groaning against the crushing pressure of the deep. Inside, silence reigned. Artificial gravity held, systems ran cold, and crew voices dropped to murmurs, the weight of the ocean above them pressing down as if the sea itself was listening. In the command cradle, Commander Ila Navarro studied the descent telemetry with a hawk's intensity. Around her, light panels flickered in deep green, mimicking the old Baybayin script, symbols of a culture long buried and perhaps now ready to rise. Sarah Magdalene stood nearby, braced against a bulkhead, watching the abyssal footage stream onto the forward screen. The seabed looked alien, black ridges and jagged outcrops, punctuated by faint pulses of bioluminescent life. But deeper still, beneath a tangle of volcanic fault lines, glowed something unmistakably artificial, a structure, massive, symmetrical, and humming faintly with power. They had found it. Navarro gave a single nod. Prep the crawler. Bring me Aklan. Aklan arrived moments later, his face flushed with the rush of validation and fear. That energy pattern, it's too complex for anything post-solarist. It's transmitting, Commander. Low-band bursts, almost ceremonial in rhythm. Navarro's brows furrowed. Ceremonial? Like chants, maybe liturgical code. Whatever it is, it's old. Not just pre-eclipse, pre-colonial. This could be the Maharlika archive, or at least a piece of it. She didn't answer immediately. The Maharlika archive was a near myth, an oral cybernetic repository said to contain the original histories of the archipelago before the Spanish invasion, before the centuries of erasure. If this was it, the implications were staggering. Not just for Luz Viminda, but for the entire network of post-colonial sovereignties in the outer systems. The truth encoded here could reshape the political memory of civilizations built on broken stories. An hour later, inside the autonomous crawler Ilaw ng Bayan, Navarro, Sarah, and Aklan descended into the structure through a fracture in its exterior shell. The chamber they entered defied expectations, vaulted, geometric, etched with glowing glyphs that hovered like static fireflies in the thin seawater. No corrosion, no decay. The site had preserved itself through unknown technologies, as if waiting for someone worthy to return. The centerpiece of the chamber was a throne-like cradle, encircled by semi-organic terminals pulsing with dormant power. Sarah approached slowly, her breath shallow in her rebreather mask, her hand extended as though reaching for something sacred. "It's keyed to language," she said. "Not commands. Invocation." Navarro nodded. "Then speak." Drawing from her mnemonic implants, Sarah whispered the opening lines of a chant, reconstructed from the fragments of a 21st-century anthropologist's lost field journal, an offering in Proto-Tagalog. "Kaming anak ng araw, saksi ng tubig, bukas ang puso sa alaala ng lahi. We, children of the sun, witnesses of the water, Open our hearts to the memory of our people. The chamber responded. Glyphs ignited, patterns expanded across the walls, and the water itself vibrated with a rising tone that resonated in their chests. Then, from the cradle, a form began to emerge, holographic, shimmering in ancestral hues. A woman draped in garments of shifting light, her face unmistakably Filipino and ageless. She spoke, not in one language, but in many, layers of Tagalog, Ilocano, Visayan, ancient tongues braided into one harmonious stream. You who remember, the projection said, have come bearing the burden of forgetting. Are you prepared to receive what was taken? Sarah, wide-eyed, nodded. Yes, we are. But the projection hesitated, flickering slightly. The memory must be chosen, not stolen. Once awakened, it cannot be silenced again. Navarro stepped forward, her voice hard with conviction. Then let it speak. The chamber's light surged, and for a moment the crew felt weightless, as though lifted from time. Images spiraled around them, the bustling barangays of ancient Manila, shipyards of Butuan, palaces of Raja Sulaiman, invasions repelled and endured, treaties made and broken. Then came the colonizers, Spanish galleons blotting out the sun, American warships, Japanese tanks, and the grinding engines of empire. But these were not the narratives written in the victors' scripts. They were told from the ground, from the perspective of healers, warriors, farmers, shamans, poets, 1,000 lifetimes woven into a tapestry too rich to be burned. Aklan broke the silence. We need to extract this, encrypt, replicate, before the directorate reaches us. But as he spoke, a low rumble echoed through the trench. The external hull of the crawler vibrated. On the comms, the pilot's voice cracked through. We're under attack. Directorate cutters, 3 of them. They found us. Navarro's face darkened. Seal the chamber. Secure the archive. Outside, torpedoes streaked through the abyss, their trails shattering the calm like lightning in ink. Inside, Sarah remained locked in the projection's glow, her mind tethered to its data stream. The knowledge was too vast for conventional transfer. It had to be remembered. I have to bond with it, she said. It won't let itself be copied. Only lived. Navarro stared at her. That could kill you. Or make me the only living archive left, Sarah replied. We don't get another chance. Navarro met her eyes, then gave a grim nod. Do it. Whatever it takes, we protect you. As the battle outside escalated, the Ilaw ng Bayan sealed itself from intrusion. Sarah sat in the throne, her body arching as the data surged through her, a flood of memories not her own but now embedded in her soul. The chamber dimmed once more, its secrets passed, its purpose fulfilled. For now. Above, in the darkness of the deep, the directorate descended. But this time, Luz Viminda would not be caught unaware. This time, the past had returned to fight for the future. The storm above the Panay Trench raged harder than any natural tempest, but it wasn't wind or waves that shook the ocean. It was war. In orbit, La Candela Prime lit the upper sky with defense bursts, intercepting directorate incursions that tried to slip past with cloaking shields. Below, deep in the trench, Ilaw ng Bayan clung to the ancient structure like a barnacle to the hull of history. Inside, the lights had dimmed, not from power loss, but from choice. The archive had completed its transfer and now slept again. Sarah Magdalene had not moved for 20 minutes. Commander Isla Navarro stood beside her, eyes scanning the live telemetry of incoming enemy crafts. She didn't interrupt the stillness. Around them, the chamber hummed softly with residual energy, almost like breath. Sarah sat slumped in the cradle, her body limp but alive. The neurodata bridge blinked in steady rhythm at the base of her skull. No error lights, no burnouts. She had survived the bond. Barely. She's stable, Dr. Ackland whispered, breaking the silence at last. Vital signs are holding. Brain activity is elevated. Not spiking, just complex. Navarro didn't relax. What does she remember? Ackland shook his head slowly. We won't know until she wakes, if she wakes fully. The weight of those words settled heavily on them. Outside, the directorate was regrouping. Their cutters circled the trench, hesitant now, scanning the wreckage of their first assault. They had underestimated the sovereignty's defenses, but they wouldn't do so twice. Navarro knew they'd return with more, and this time, they'd come for the girl. Sarah stirred. It was barely emotion, just the twitch of a finger, a flutter of eyelids. But to Navarro it was enough. She stepped forward. Sarah? Sarah's eyes opened, unfocused at first, then sharp, ancient. Not old in age, but in gaze, as though thousands of souls looked out from behind her retinas. Her lips parted. The sea, she murmured, remembers. Navarro knelt beside her, tension curling in her spine. What did it give you? Sarah blinked slowly. Not just stories, strategies, tactics, resistance movements buried beneath centuries of erasure, economic maps from the pre-Spanish trade networks, agricultural systems optimized for climate collapse, entire philosophies of governance that never made it into any book because they threatened empire. Ackland's mouth dropped open. That's not just memory. That's civilization. It's proof, Sarah said, stronger now. Proof that we were never primitive, that we were fractured by force, not by failure. Navarro stood, her jaw tightening with purpose. Then we distribute it. Right now, before the directorate silences us again. Sarah's gaze flickered to her, a hint of warning behind her serenity. We can't just send it out raw. The data is encrypted not for security, but to demand patience. It has to be taught. Understood. Felt Ackland nodded slowly. Cultural memory isn't a broadcast. It's a seed. If we scatter it without care, it'll never grow. Then we guard it, Navarro said. We make Luz Viminda the ground from which it grows. Above them, the ship shuddered. A blast ripple passed through the chamber. The directorate had begun their second assault. Time had run out. Emergency evac route is compromised, the pilot called through the comm. Cutters are deploying deep drones. Estimated breach in 5 minutes. Navarro looked at Sarah. Can you move? Sarah nodded once. I can do more than move. She stood, slowly but without weakness, and the chamber reacted. Lights rose around her like fireflies responding to a queen's return. The archive had chosen her, and with that choice came command. Navarro activated her comm. Divert all power to cloak field and launch decoys. We're not escaping. We're slipping through the blind spots. The ship jolted again as the ocean itself seemed to tighten. Outside, the directorate drones dropped toward the trench like dark meteors, but something had shifted in the water. Sensors aboard the Ilaw ng Bayan began reporting strange readings, sonar ghosts, movements that weren't machines, old silhouettes, submerged sentinels activated by the awakening of the archive, long-forgotten defense constructs powered by ocean thermals and embedded tribal scripts. They're responding to her, Ackland said in awe, to the archive. Sarah didn't look surprised. They've waited long enough. One by one, the ghost machines rose from the trench. Ancient technologies shaped like sea serpents and war crabs, hulls etched in Bebayan, eyes glowing with geothermal light. They didn't fire weapons. They simply swam, fast, massive, and impossible to track, forming a perimeter that forced the directorate cutters to hesitate. Then retreat. As Ilaw ng Bayan began its slow ascent, Navarro turned to Sarah. What happens now? Sarah stared upward, beyond the hull, beyond the sea. We rewrite everything. The chamber dimmed behind them, its memory passed, its burden lifted. For the first time in generations, Luz Viminda carried the truth in its people, not in stolen books or translated broadcasts, but in breath, in blood, and in the living archive of Sarah Magdalene. And far above, in the cold dark of space, the directorate convened in silence, realizing too late that the past they had tried to bury had not only survived, but had chosen to fight.